Heidi-ho, and welcome to Cast That Movie, the podcast where two nobodies go back in time and revisit a failed cinematic project from the past. We diagnose what may have gone wrong, and we recast the project using a cast from that era, as well as a director/visionary. And then we go ahead and think of our own dream project, and we cast that as well. We play an assortment of games, we talk some casting news, and have an all-around grand time. My name is Joad McDougall, and I am joined, as always, by your co-host, Tom Van Horton. Hello, Tom.
Hello, Joad. What's going on, sir?
Oh, you know, living the dream.
Living the dream. I'm going to apologize now. I got storm going on in the background, so if you hear some booms and thunders, that's what's going on.
Yeah, it's a little bit turbulent in our neck of the country right now. Tornadoes sprouting up here, there, and everywhere. But this just shows our dedication to fulfilling our obligation to this podcast, that we're still on the air.
And side note to that, I should bring
and we have families, and we're still doing this and leaving them to their own devices through this torrid weather.
Yep, I just said, yep, you guys figure it out. If something goes wrong, just find a place to be safe. I'll be on the computer.
Son, you're the man of the house now.
Yeah,
Daddy's got a podcast.
Daddy's got a podcast. You're 8, you handle it. I brought this up on the Twin Peaks podcast. I'm going in for surgery next week. By the time this airs, the day that this comes out, that's my day of surgery. So I may not be around for the next particular Cast That Movie. That would be you and Joe Fremming. Mm-hmm. Right? Yep. So I just wanted to bring that up, that the next podcast I probably will not be a part of.
We will try to soldier on without you.
Oh, I'm sure it'll be more coherent.
All right. On that note, let us first start. Do you have any retractions, corrections, anything from our previous installment that you would like to address?
Yeah, because that's right. We dove high-tide into the whole PMRC. Mm-hmm. And I touched upon it a little bit, but another listener of ours brought it up, that when Frank Zappa talked about the blank cassette tax, right? That's really what a lot of these politicians were doing this for. They're like, hey, our wives are upset because someone said masturbate on a song. We can create this controversy and get this law quickly passed through. That's really where a lot of this came from.
Right. Okay, I got nothing, so I say we should just move on and go to our first break, but we will be back very quickly thereafter to do some casting news. I got a little nugget I'd like to discuss, and then before we do the break, we should probably tease what we're doing today. We usually do that, don't we?
We do normally do that.
Man, we are just all scattershot on this episode so far. It's the seat of our pants.
I blame the tornadoes.
Yes. We're a little bit distracted, I guess. So really quickly for the recast, we are going to continue with the Michael Crichton projects. We did Sphere last episode, and we are moving on to, I would argue, even more inferior film to that, Timeline from 2003. And then, Tom, why don't you quickly tell everybody what are we doing for our original dream project later in the episode?
Later in the episode, we are going to be casting a movie about the 1899 baseball team known as the Cleveland Spiders.
Baseball!
Joe, you were super excited when I said we're going to do a baseball movie.
Yeah, baseball movies are their own kind of thing. So yeah, it's different than anything we've done before. So I am excited. It was a little tough for me, and I'll explain why when we get to it. But anyway, let's do what I'd already teased like 3 minutes ago and go to our first break, and then we will come back with some casting news, and we will then visit 2003's Timeline. Bebop, diddly skiddly skash, a bebop squee. Let's face it, jazz music makes no sense. It's all over the place. A note here, a note there. Utter nonsense and rubbish. and not at all what music was meant to be. Until now. Whitebread Software is proud to introduce the Jazz Corrector. Filter any jazz song through our patented software, and suddenly all those rogue notes and bloody insane time signatures are fixed, packaged neatly into traditional arrangements and more comfortable melodies. This technology works for recordings as early as the 1930s all the way to contemporary jazz arrangements. Welcome back to Kasdan Movie, and we are going to go on to casting news. Tom, a little bit of casting news.
Casting news.
Before I give my nugget, do you have anything you would like to share for us to discuss?
For casting, someone
brought some... If you don't have anything, then we're going to move on, Tom.
Okay.
Unless you do.
No, I don't.
Okay. All right, well, I got one. So, are you familiar with Todd McFarlane's Spawn?
Dude, I love Spawn, actually.
You used to read the comic?
Used to read the comic. I've seen the movie with John
Leguizamo.
John Leguizamo. I was trying to think of who the lead was, and I can't remember who the lead was at that time.
I think it killed his career, honestly. So.
What's that?
I think it killed his career.
Yeah, it didn't help a lot of. Yeah, it killed a lot of people's career. Anyone that was in it.
I think Leguizamo just had an immunity built up after Super Mario Brothers, so he could make crap movies and still have a career afterwards.
Yeah. Oh, well, absolutely. And then
I feel like I'm a little bit still in my character from the thing I just did. Oh man, I gotta shake the wasp out of me or something.
No, we talked about Wasp in the last episode. So no, and then HBO had a show on it.
Yep.
I played some of the video games. As a matter of fact, just recently got Mortal Kombat 11. Spawn is a character in that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I love Spawn.
Yeah, I was into comic books around the time of Spawn. I read it some. It wasn't a huge thing for me. But the reason why I ask and bring it up is because they are making a new Spawn movie, according to Todd McFarlane. And the lead role is Jamie Foxx. Jamie Foxx is playing Spawn. What do you think of that?
That makes me excited, honestly. Because if Jamie Foxx is involved in it, he's, Amazing Spider-Man 2, but that really wasn't its fault. I think everyone just had Spider-Man fatigue. It wasn't a bad movie, and he wasn't bad in it at all. So I think Jamie Foxx is very picky about his roles. And if he's going to play Al Simmons, then yeah, I'm all for it.
Okay. A little more, I'm okay with the idea. A little more concerning for me is having Jeremy Renner as also part of the main cast, playing a detective role of some sort. Yeah, not as bullish on that, but yeah, overall, I'll watch it. Yeah, I'm familiar enough with the material, and yeah, you're right. Jamie Foxx tends to usually choose his projects well. I don't know. Do you have this with any actors? Sometimes it's hard for me to take Jamie Foxx seriously because how I got to know him was from In Living Color. Sure. And he's more than proved that he is a dramatic powerhouse as far as acting, but I still, it still lingers. I'd say even I had that with Robin Williams. I always struggled with him in dramatic roles sometimes, even though he was a really good actor.
He was a really good actor.
And Jim Carrey too, same thing. You're not a Jim Carrey fan, I know, but I'm just saying it's that same show actually in Living Color, but it was so formative for me in my youth,
No, I totally get it. And Living Color was great, and I want to make it very clear, I did like Jim Carrey in Living Color. I just didn't think he was ready for the mainstay, but actually my favorite movie of his is actually one of my top 20 movies of all time, which is Eternal Sunshine on a Spotless Mind.
Yeah.
And I loved him in that role, and I took me forever to actually see it because it was Jim Carrey.
Oh, okay. All right, so we are both cautiously optimistic on Jamie Foxx being cast as Spawn. So obviously they're not filming it yet, but once they get rolling and it comes together, we shall see. Let us move on then to our recast. And as I mentioned earlier, we are sticking with Michael Crichton source material, and we are doing 2003's Timeline, starring Paul Walker, Gerard Butler, and Billy Connolly. Michael Sheen was in it. I forget who directed it.
No, it was Richard Donner.
Oh yeah. So that's a pretty heavy hitting cast. Tom, why don't you tell us what happened with Timeline?
Oh boy. Well, first of all, you threw me a doozy with this one because there was not a lot of information, and I had to actually go deep into some rabbit holes to actually get information on it. And I think it's because it didn't do well. Michael Crichton himself later distanced himself immediately from this movie. And there was just so much wrong here. Let's start with the box office totals. The budget was about 80 million, and as we talked about, movies have to make double what that is in order to become profitable, right? So if they say an $80 million budget, they have to make about 160 million in order to be considered a success. Domestically, this did $19.5 million its entire run. Worldwide, 43 million. Didn't even come close. Now, as I said, I had to dig into things, and I'm going to borrow heavily from a 2003 November 24th article, which was an interview with Richard Donner for a lot of my information. This interview took place 2 days before the movie release. So what you're going to see here is some of the things, but I pulled some information from it, as well as Robert Ebert talked about in his review how he went to see it at the Chicago press screening, and Richard Donner and his wife showed up, who's the producer of the movie, Lauren Schuler, and did a little. We're going to talk about the movie beforehand, and Roger Ebert said himself, like, when filmmakers do that, I want to hide, because this tells me that the movie's not good, that they're making up why this movie isn't what they wanted it to be. And they told about this long odyssey about how the movie was made, this corporate struggles, the different locations, and all these issues with it. And I was like, where is this information? And it was nowhere except in this IGN article. So, per Richard Donner himself, the problems we ran into with this film are extraordinary. First off, it was a bitch developing the screenplay, which we finally did. Then we picked a location. We could not shoot in France because everything around the Dordogne Valley and around that area was all built up, so you couldn't get a medieval look without spending a fortune to take everything out with computers. We looked at locations all over Europe. We found the best one at the time in Wales, so we decided it was going to be in Wales. We art directed it for it to be in Wales. We started setting up the sites for it to be in Wales, and then we couldn't because hoof and mouth disease hit England, and we were asked not to go there. So they shut down, a few $1 million down in the drain. So then they're going to shoot in a national forest outside of Berlin. Then 9/11 happened. And they didn't want to be in Berlin with such a high-profile film, so they got shut down for another 6 months. They went to try doing it in America. Then they tried filming in Canada. And they finally got to themselves in Montreal to film the movie. IGN asked, was there any point where this could have been permanently derailed? He said, at every single point. We've just spent so much money, and you wanted to say, hey, wait a minute, maybe it's just better to recoup our losses and close up shop. They lost a ton of money in Germany, lost all that money in England. They had to close down because of a strike. They had to pay people off. They had 9/11, they had all these other issues, and he said, well, how difficult was it to cast the film? And Richard Donner said, a little difficult, in that it was such an ensemble that you really wanted one to complement the other. Paul Walker was just kind of, they made him for the role. Because he was a really nice looking kid, not all that interested in what he was doing, but it's what it is. And then the only other thing of mention of noteworthiness was he was asked what was the current state of Goonies 2, and he said waiting for Warner's to say yes, they're being ridiculous. Um, so there was a lot of problem with this. Now, Joe, I got to ask you, did you ever read this book?
No.
Okay.
I did not read the book. No, I did not. I'm trying to remember, and I don't recall that I ever did.
Okay, so the book, I actually did some research. I hadn't read this book either, but I figured if I'm going to talk about this, because one of the big things that I heard over and over on like on the review sites and things like that were just how fucked this movie was compared to the book.
Right.
In the movie,
Michael Crichton is very much an attention to detail kind of guy, and you had mentioned how he didn't like this and distanced himself. He disowned this movie.
Yes.
In fact, he refused to let anybody else make movies of his material up until his death. So that's how much Michael Crichton hated it. But go on.
Okay, so in the movie they're using time like warp wormholes, and it's not really time travel, but it is time travel. In the book, it's all about the multiverse and they developed a quantum teleportation system. So they couldn't even get the science right. And, there was just so many glaring differences in the book. There's a character that was made for the movie, the French translator, that was immediately killed just to add some tension to it. It was just a overall piece of shit, to be honest with you. And the writing and everything was just so awful. It took three different screenwriters. They went through three different screenwriting processes and was just a disaster. So that's what I got there for you.
Yeah, it was just really bad. It was just bad
all
around.
It's a bad movie. Really bad movie. Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like a Michael Crichton movie at all. It feels like just something that a hack threw together for a screenplay and they greenlit it.
Well, that was essentially it, because they wanted to do these things. Now, one of the other cool things I should say about this was that Richard Donner was adamant that the least amount of CGI as possible. So what he got was a bunch of medieval reenactors. Most of those people that are fighting in there are people that are LARPers and do reenactments of historical wars of the medieval time. And when they're launching off the fireball, the flaming arrows and everything, that's real flaming arrows. That's real fireballs. He tried to keep the CGI to a minimum because in 2003 he was worried about how it was going to age.
Good for Richard Donner. So let's replace him.
Yes.
Well, you just did your whole thing, so I'll start here on the recast, and we'll start with Richard Donner as director. It's Richard Donner, obviously Superman. He's had some big hits, and he had his time and place, but I don't know. Has he done anything worthwhile in like the last 2-3 decades? I mean, you don't even need to look it up. I think the answer is no.
No, I'm looking it up, and and as we're looking that up, I also want to bring up a point of with this movie. It was hard because is it sci-fi or is it a medieval film? You know what I mean? Really. Outside of Scrooged, which really was no. The answer is no. He hasn't done anything really since Lethal Weapon 3. Lethal Weapon 4 is there, but still, that wasn't a great Lethal Weapon movie.
He was way past his prime, I guess is my point. So I decided to do the opposite and go with, it's actually two directors who were at the top, were in their absolute prime at this time. I went with and they definitely are able to have a deft hand with sci-fi, I believe. I went with the Wachowski sisters.
Yes. They were on my short list. They were on my short list, but I was like, you know what? I want the Matrix movies. Well, actually, probably would have been better because then Matrix 2 and 3 wouldn't have been done. Instead, they would have done Timeline.
Made an awesome time. And then Michael Crichton would have let them do another. Who knows what we might have had, and we would have been stuck with the one true Matrix. But yeah.
Yes.
Who did you take for director?
I went in the same direction as you did. I went with someone that's known for sci-fi that can do, that can direct A sword style play. I went with Lawrence Kasdan.
Laura, and remind me his resume.
Lawrence Kasdan, Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, okay.
And he was done. He actually did a movie in 2003. I can't remember what it was off the top of my head. Man. Let's see here. He did Dreamcatcher. He directed Dreamcatcher.
Oh, with the Stephen King adaptation.
Yes.
Yeah, yep. Underrated, I thought.
Very underrated. That was a great movie. So yeah, Lawrence Kasdan knows what he's doing.
Sure. So then, who is your lead? Who's taking over the Paul Walker role?
Okay, I'm gonna be very honest with you. This movie was so bad and so uninspiring. I struggled with this casting, really, really hard. But I eventually landed on Adam Brody.
Adam Brody, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Was he? Oh, from The Pianist?
Yep. No, not Adrian Brody.
Oh, that's Adrian Brody.
That's Adrian Brody.
Adam Brody. Was he a thing at the time in 2003?
He was. He actually did a movie in 2003. Yes. So yeah, he was a thing. Absolutely.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And he could have played the college role very easily. Yeah, he did 3 movies. He did Grind, Home Security, and Missing Brendan.
I've never heard of any of those movies.
You didn't hear Grind? It was a horror. It was a comedy about amateur skaters.
You started with horror and then you went to comedy.
My train of thought, but yeah, he did that, and then 2 years later he broke out in Mr. and Mrs. Smith and Thank You for Smoking.
So he was kind of riding the indie circuit at the time, you're saying?
Yeah, I mean he did American Pie 2, The Ring, and Grind, and then went to Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Yep.
Okay. So I'll say it for my cast. I just took what the original cast and just upgraded them all. I didn't do anything too crazy here.
Okay.
So for my Chris Johnston to replace Paul Walker, who it's not cool to speak ill of the dead, of course, but I've always found him to be a terrible actor.
Well, he was good in what he did, and I'll give him his dues. The Fast and Furious movies, he didn't need a lot. He worked for the Fast and Furious movies. He did not work for this movie.
No. Okay, well, we'll leave it there because again, I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but I have a very low opinion of his acting chops. Sorry he's gone, but
absolutely.
Anyway, so I went with an obvious upgrade here, and somebody who I think would fit right in with this feel. He's kind of done similar projects, like the medieval type stuff, but he's flexible that he could master any genre. And he's also, unfortunately, no longer with us. I went with Heath Ledger.
Yeah, that's definitely an upgrade. I would give you that, 100%. So then who'd you go for your Merrick?
So for my Andre Merrick, we should remind people, was Gerard Butler. Pre-300 Gerard Butler was cast in that role in the original timeline. Again, I went same, just an upgrade in talent. I went with somebody we've tried to cast before. I went with James McAvoy.
Very nice. Yeah, Gerard, this was a tough one for me because Gerard Butler was like the one actor in this movie that I felt belonged in this movie.
It was one of his better performances, to be quite honest.
Really good. It was a really good performance, yeah. And unfortunately, it was wasted on this movie. But yes, he was by far he outacted everybody in every scene he was in. So this was difficult for me because I didn't know where to go for that. So I went with someone, a little bit of a downgrade in my mind, but not that far downgraded. I went with Jeremy Davies.
Oh, so you're doing a Scottish brogue then, or?
You'll see. Yep. You'll see where I'm going with this.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Interesting. So, for those that don't know, that he's Saving Private Ryan, the coward, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Then who did you take for Professor Johnston to replace Billy Connolly?
Okay, so I love Billy Connolly.
Yeah.
But my God, the father-son. You got a guy with a heavy, Irish accent, Scottish accent, and you got Paul Walker. It just didn't work. You know what I mean? So I was thinking about. I actually casted my Johnston first and then tried to look for someone that could work with him in that way, you're going to laugh at this one. I'm bringing back James Spader.
What do you mean bringing back James Spader? Where did he ever leave?
2003, dude. Okay, tell me what James Spader was doing in 2000.
Oh, I don't know. I just didn't know that there was a lag. He's saying James Spader. You think he's old enough?
Oh yeah, I think he was old enough in 2003. Yeah.
Well, I decided
acting in 78, dude.
Sure. I decided to just continue doing what I was doing, so I took Billy Connolly and upgraded him. I went with Sean Connery.
Very nice. That was on my short list as well. Yep. Okay. All right. So
Connolly to Connery. Yep.
Yep. Who's your Lady Claire?
Lady Claire. So I forget the actress who played her, but I don't remember her being all that impressive. So I just wanted somebody that, I don't know, it's such it's not a very good role. So I wanted somebody, as I usually try to do with roles like this, that would elevate the role and just put the talent in there, and then they can make it a more significant, entertaining role than it is on paper. I went with Naomi Watts.
Very nice. I went. This one I considered an upgrade. I wanted someone that could be a little bit more actor. I probably would have made her a little bit more involved in some of it. I went with Keira Knightley.
So we got Keira Knightley hooking up with Jeremy Davies.
Yep.
Versus my James McAvoy and Naomi Watts.
Which would be, I know.
Okay, who's your Lord Oliver?
Oh, no, I want your Lord Oliver first.
Okay, fair enough. So you've been trying to cast this guy, I think a couple times, and it just hasn't worked out. So I'm going to take over here and see if we can plug him in. I went with Sean Bean.
Very nice. Yep, he was on my short list, but I thought I did cast him. I thought we went with him, so I was like, oh, can't use him. So I went with someone that I loved, that you love, that could play a villain, but also make it captivating. Mm-hmm. I went with the late, great Bill Paxton.
Oh, okay. Let's talk about our picks here.
Yeah, let's.
All right, so for director, we got the Wachowski sisters versus Lawrence Kasdan.
Oh, that's a tough one.
That is a tough one.
That is a tough one because they could both do it.
It really comes down to with the Wachowski sisters, you're going to get something that's more sleek, more modern. Lawrence Kasdan, obviously an old school director, which is kind of what we had with Richard Donner.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think we go with you. I mean, I think you're going to win a lot of this one, but we're going to go with yours because I think, again, it's a different direction. I think Lawrence Kasdan, we would have gotten somewhat of the same.
Sure. Okay. So moving on then, Chris Johnston. I had Heath Ledger, and you had
Adam Brody. No, not Adrian. Adam Brody. God, how old was Heath Ledger in 2003?
2003 would have been right around Knight's Tale, which is kind of why I thought of him. He would have been in his late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah. See, that was the one thing because, this is supposed to be about college students, and you know what I mean. And that's why I wonder if Heath Ledger's a little too old for the role.
Sure, and I wouldn't mind saving him for a better project anyway.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else we're going to cast Adam Brody in, so might as well go with it.
So, yeah, we'll give it to Adrian Brody's brother.
Yeah,
I don't know. Are they brothers, actually?
I don't know if there's any relation.
Who cares? Anyway, Andre Merrick, I had...
We take the show so seriously.
I had James McAvoy. You had Jeremy Davies.
Oh, dude, you put them in there. James McAvoy. Yeah, I'm gonna go with James McAvoy. Win. Yeah, take him. Put him in.
This would have been before James McAvoy had broken out. Kind of similar to Gerard Butler in that way. Like this was after he was on the British Shameless, so he was established. I think this is right around when he did that Children of Dune miniseries.
Well, the Children of Dune, I think it was. Well, that's when it came out, but he was filming like 2001. That Dune miniseries was before he broke out in Shameless.
Well, he didn't really break out in Shameless. I'd say he broke out in I forget the name. It was a movie in the mid aughts, but yeah, regardless, he's already in acting, you know.
Yes, he is.
He's got a career. He'd have been, you know, I mean, I guess him and Adam Brody would have both been, you know, kind of their big break type deals.
Yes.
So,
yep. Oh no, I'll totally take it. I'll totally, yeah.
Okay, so moving on.
Would have been awesome.
Moving on, Professor Johnston. I got Sean Connery, and
I got softcore James Spader.
You're bringing back James Spader.
Bringing back James Spader. I mean, I brought back the Gutenberg. Yeah. Do we want to waste Connery for this?
Kinda, because if we want this to work, we need at least some kind of a name talent, and we're going with two no-name leads.
Yeah, no.
So kind of like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen type thing, where you can have a bunch of no-name guys playing all the bit roles, and then you got Sean Connery you can throw on the poster.
Yeah, just like the passing of the torch type of thing, which they tried to do with that one. All right, I'll give it to you. We'll go with Connery.
All right. Plus, I don't know. I like James Spader, actually, and kind of would like to save him for something else, personally.
Fair enough. I love James Spader, actually. I really enjoy him.
He's got a certain thing about him that certain roles would be very ideal. I just don't see it for this. Lady Claire, Naomi Watts, and you had...
I had Keira Knightley. Naomi Watts, done. Over.
Oh, I was prepared to concede on that.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll leave it up to you.
Let's hear it. Why? Why not Naomi Watts? And over, I mean, why do you have Keira Knightley over Naomi Watts?
I think Naomi Watts is a way better actress and is better than this material.
I disagree there. I am a huge Naomi Watts fan, but that's also because she does a lot of Lynch movies.
Well, I just said she's a way better actress. I'm not talking shit about her.
Oh, yeah. I see what you're saying. Okay, yes, let's save Naomi Watts then, please. So, yes, we'll give it to Keira Knightley. Okay.
I mean, Keira Knightley's nothing to sneeze at. She's definitely talented. She just doesn't have... I mean, I could see us using Naomi Watts in other projects. I don't know. I just want to save her if we can.
No, so agreed. I'm totally down for that. Yes, agreed. Okay, we're on the same page.
Lord Oliver. So Sean Bean, I know we didn't use him for the one I couldn't remember who he was briefly.
Yes.
Right. What was the other project that you introduced him
No, I
for?
thought it was that one. I thought we took him in that one. That was like one of our first podcasts, so that's been months ago now. So I don't remember, but I remember bringing him up. So I didn't want to bring him up again.
Sure. I can't let Bill Paxton
be Lord Oliver,
be in this movie, and can't use Bill Paxton again.
Could you see him though? I mean, to be honest, he'd be in a great Lord Oliver, right? He really would have.
No, he wouldn't have, because I don't know that he can even do a British accent convincingly, and it would have been joke casting. I don't think the Wachowski sisters are going to put Bill Paxton.
All right, fair enough. All right, then we're gonna go. Sean. All right, yeah, motherfucker.
Jesus.
Who are these motherfuckers in my motherfucking castle?
All right. Okay. Well, that's enough for Timeline. I think we got a definitely respectable cast and crew together that would have made something that people wouldn't have forgotten had existed 17 years later, which is the case now. I forgot about it until I was looking into Sphere. I forgot this was even a movie that I'd seen once upon a time.
I'd seen it too, and I forgot about it. And that's something to say. I mean, this thing's sitting at 11% on Rotten Tomatoes, and again, I think the same problems that Dustin Hoffman brought up in Sphere is the same issues with this one. Is it a sci-fi? Is it medieval? Is it what are you trying to do with this? Like, this is a hard movie, I think, to put in and get together.
And when you have no style, you can't. I mean, that's one thing with the Wachowski sisters is they got style.
Absolutely.
And that would have been able to marry things, I think, together a little better. It's just clunky and boring and just really bad. Just really bad.
It was really bad.
So we're done with that. We fixed it, as we always do, and now we're going to take a break. Then we're going to come back and play a little game.
Game time,
and then we're going to talk some baseball.
All right.
We'll be back in a minute. Are you thirsting for your annual fantasy football league, but you have no faith in games ever being played this year because of you know what? How can you draft a team when these pansies are opting out left and right? And what happens when the first O-line coach kicks it, or one of those fat reps kicks it? It's time to reimagine fantasy sports and sign up on Gridiron Gambit's new weekly fantasy app, Will They, Won't They, where players gain points by correctly guessing which teams will be able to play that week and which teams will be under quarantine. Look, these are trying times. We've lost a lot. There's no reason to lose fantasy gambling on top of everything else, right? Sign up for Will They, Won't They now, and you'll receive a custom mask in the mail featuring your favorite NFL team. This is America. And this is the most American solution to the most American thing. America.
Their side out of mind, end of the line. Call me to tell me it's just had a feeling like nothing I'd known.
Welcome back to Cast That Movie, and it is game time. Game time, Tom. Game time.
Game time. Game time. Pants off. Game time.
Game time. All right. So this week, I'll admit, I think I teased a new game last week we were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot about that until just in the break you mentioned it to me. God. Oh, man. Hopefully people are finding humor in just how inept we are this episode, but whatever. Anyway, so we don't have a new game.
No. You know what? I'm going to blame it again on the tornadoes, on the weather, and I'm also going to blame it on the fact that we have known for a while that I was going to have this surgery. Mm-hmm. So things were up in the air as to when I was going to have the surgery. So we weren't even sure if I was going to be on this episode or not.
Right. Yeah, it was just a lot of moving parts. So I'm not going to promise a new game anytime ever again until I'm absolutely certain. But we do have another top 3 list, though, and I think it's one that people will like. It's our top 3 movies featuring dogs. Puppies. So let's start here. You want to go first, or shall I with my number 3 pick?
Why don't you unleash the puppies first?
All right, puppy time. All right, so my number 3 pick is a classic dog movie. Now, dog movies, for the most part, when you think of a dog movie, you think of family entertainment. You know, the dog movies have a certain reputation, right?
Yes.
For the most part. And my number 3 pick is no exception, and it is one that most people think is not as good as another movie that is similar, but I like it better. It's Iron Will.
Oh, you like Iron? Okay, mine.
As opposed to White Fang, I should.
Yep, as opposed to White Fang. Mm-hmm. I can get behind that. I can do that. My number 3 dog movie is one I picked mostly for nostalgia, because I liked it when I was much younger, and it's one of those movies that when I was a kid that just stuck with me. Milo and Otis.
Oh, sure. Mm-hmm. Sure, yeah, there was a lot of those that almost made my list. My number 2 pick is purely a nostalgia pick. So I'll go into that now, and then I'm going to tell you like an example of a couple others that, for nostalgia reasons, almost made it but didn't. So my number 2 pick is Old Yeller. It's one of those movies that I watched a bajillion times when I was young. But other movies like Homeward Bound, even Beethoven. I mean, those are movies I was like a little kid when they came out, and I watched them to death, and still have kind of a fondness for. But so they almost, one of those almost snuck into like number 3. But Iron Will is just a better movie, and it's one that I like now, even watching as much as I liked when I first did.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. Homeward Bound was on my list. Benji was on my, these are all things out of nostalgia that I was really for. But Old Yeller is yours. My number 2 is a movie that I liked as a kid. I don't think the humor is there much anymore, but it still at the time was a great movie for its time. Turner and Hooch.
Oh, sure. Tom
Mhm.
Hanks. Yeah.
Tom Hanks, Turner and Hooch, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. That definitely counts because Hooch was in the was the second biggest star in that movie.
Yes.
Um, okay, so my number one pick is nothing like my first two picks. Nothing like most dog movies. But dogs are the central focus of the film. It is Best in Show, Tom. Best
We
in
had the
Show.
same one. We had the
Yeah,
same
I figured. I
Yep.
figured we would.
hmm
I figured once we all looked at when we Googled dog movies and that pops up, it's like,
Yeah.
my God, this is like way better than any of these other movies.
No doubt about it. Yeah, Best in Show, phenomenal movie. Absolutely love it.
All right.
Yeah.
Those are our three favorite dog movies. So let's move on to our original dream project, which is all about the Cleveland Spiders of, was it 1899? We're going way the fuck back in time for this one.
Way the fuck back in time. So when we were looking for things, I really enjoyed kind of getting into the historical aspect of doing the PMRC that we did last week. And so one of the things I decided was we haven't really focused on as an original project was sports. So I went on a hunt and for the worst sports team in history. And I found it in the 1899 Cleveland Spiders, that particular season. Are you familiar at all with the Cleveland Spiders, sir?
No, I've never heard of them.
Well, here's the thing. Let's talk about what went on here. So, in the 1899 Cleveland Spiders were a baseball team, and in the particular that year, it was their 13th and final season in the Major League Baseballs, and their 11th season in the National League. What happened was that in 1899, the owners of the Spiders, the Robinson brothers, Frank Robinson and Stanley Robinson, bought a competing team, the St. Louis Browns, from Chris Fondier, and renamed it the St. Louis Perfectos. Now, they continued to retain ownership of the Cleveland club, which was an obvious conflict of interest. But they did it. So Stanley Robinson publicly announced his intention to run the Spiders, quote, as a sideshow.
Oh my God.
Yep. This was going to be a sideshow, and they were going to focus on the St. Louis Perfectos. To give you an idea, Cy Young, his first team was the Cleveland Spiders. You had there was a lot of other great players on that team that were taken off from the Cleveland Spiders and moved to the Perfectos. So to give you an idea, after the first 16 home games, Cleveland total attendance was 3,179 people for an average of 199 people per game showed up to the Cleveland Spiders. The other, what's that?
I said, okay.
Yep. So other National League teams responded by refusing to travel to the Cleveland's League Park since it cut into their ticket revenues since they weren't getting enough people. So as a result, for that season, the Spiders only played 26 home games, only 26 more home games for the rest of the season, including only 8 after July 1st. In doing so, they set a number of negative records, including this one, 101 road losses. That's unbreakable under Major League Baseball's current schedule.
Yeah, we should explain, because baseball, this year being an exception, but baseball seasons are 162 games, 81 home, 81 away. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So no one can beat this. So their final record for the season was 20 wins, 134 losses, for a win ratio of 0.13, and it's still the worst in Major League Baseball. So, yeah, this is crazy because people think Cy Young, all this stuff. Well, he debuted with the team, and then he was taken out, and so was moved over there. They had a coach. They had 2 player managers, actually, that were players and managers. And they took the first player manager, who was really good, Lava Cave, and moved him and brought back a guy who had retired because he couldn't do it anymore to be the fucking player manager for the fucking Spiders. So because of this, it is now illegal for coaches or for owners to own more than one team. It is because of the Cleveland Spiders that they came together and said, this is no longer allowed. This is outlawed. You own one club. That is it. So what all went down on this one? So Jim Huey was their winningest pitcher, holds the record for most pitching losses in a single season of 30. Their first baseman, who Tommy Tucker had also retired, was convinced to come back. Larry Lockheed, who played shortstop, he batted a .238 average and made 81 errors. Arguably the worst player on the team, so of course he appeared in more games than anyone else, 148 of the 154 Spider games. Tidbit, he died of liver complications at the age of 33, a month after getting lost in the desert. This was some crazy shit. They're also known for having a baseball player by the name of Louis Soxalexis, who was the first Native American ever to be allowed in American National Baseball. And it is if you ask the Cleveland Indians, that is where they got the name from, was because of Louis Soxalexis.
Oh, fuck that shit.
I'm just telling you what they say, man. I'm just telling you what they say.
Fuck them. Okay, anyway.
So, yeah, I pulled up some stats here. Jim Hooley, who I mentioned earlier, was their winningest pitcher, had an ERA of 5.41, dude.
Well, that's not terrible. I mean, that's not good, but it's not like, I mean, if it was like 8 or 9, then but yeah, I guess that's pretty bad for your ace.
That's pretty bad for your ace, considering that their non-ace was 10.13.
There we go.
Yeah. Another one, 8.17. There was another guy, 9, who's only allowed to play once. This was just a ridiculous thing. So yeah, I think this could be an amazing movie to just watch.
Is there any? Did you find any relation to Major League, the movie Major League? Because
I didn't.
Kind of the plot there is they wanted to put together the worst team, so she could sell the team to someone else to I forget where.
Well, and it's about them, so I'm sure whoever wrote the movie was in on it. But no, I've not. No one's made, and I'm glad you brought that up, because no one's made that distinction of that. So yeah, absolutely.
Right. You have anything more to add then, or shall we start putting this cast together?
I mean, I don't know if there's much else I could fucking add to this story, dude.
All right, well, let's do it then. So let's start first with who is helming this project. You want to go first, or do you want me to
I'll
go?
let you know. I just did a whole bunch of talking. You go.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, so for my director, is there anything more American than baseball and apple pie? I wanted a comfortable presence helming my project. Somebody who's done baseball movies. I went with Tom Hanks.
Very nice. Okay.
And we can still use him as an actor down the road, just to be clear to everybody. If we do, I don't know who you pick, but if we do go with Tom Hanks, he can still be cast in a role down the road. So, Tom Hanks.
So I can't remember. I picked one, but I can't remember if we went with them or not. So I also picked a secondary if this didn't work.
Okay.
Or if you called foul. I went with the Coen brothers because I want this to just be a bizarre thing about this club.
Oh, that's a good question. Man. We should keep track of what we pick,
Right?
what we pick for our projects here. Fuck. Okay. Damn. Okay. Well, we'll talk about it. Moving on, then. You're Stanley Robinson.
Yes.
Who's your Stanley Robinson?
Okay, so these guys, are. I mean, my movie's obviously a comedy. I think your movie's a comedy as well.
Yeah, League of Their Own type.
Yep,
Yeah.
League of Their Own. To me, this is more like batshit. Like I see this instead of being more of a League of Their Own. I see this being like fucking Major League, but everyone's fucking on crack. The way I really determined this.
Well, cocaine was in the Coca-Cola back in those days, right?
Yes, and you could get you could go over the counter and get some heroin. So it was very easy to do.
Boy, go to the store and get me some Coca-Cola and some smack.
Get it done now.
Papa's got a game tonight.
And
All right.
Speaking of that voice, I think I could get someone who kind of not quite as high pitched, but someone who could get that cadence very well. I went with Paul Giamatti.
Okay, so this was tough for me because I didn't know the story. I'm careful not to look too much because I like to learn as you're telling the story on these things. But I did need to look up and at least Google these people because I needed some kind of I didn't need a spot-on resemblance, but just a loose idea of what they might have looked like. But it was hard to find. I got a good picture of Frank, and I did cast accordingly there. Stanley, I couldn't find anything that would have been this era.
It was the opposite for me.
Okay. So for me, I went with the father-son thing. I went with Colin Hanks in the role of Stanley Robinson.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are we doing Stanley or Frank first? I'm sorry.
Oh, did you do Frank?
I did Frank first.
Oh, shit. Okay. God damn, man.
I'm sorry. Dude.
No. You're fine. I should have been listening closer. Okay. Well, so we've spoiled my Stanley. So now I'll give you my Frank. Frank Robinson. Frank. And to be clear, not Frank Robinson. It's a whole different person. A whole different story. Frank Robinson. Yes, you're correct. That is the one I could find the younger picture. And so for that role, I went with Matthew Rhys. I don't know if you know him, but he was on The Americans, the lead male on The Americans. He's also the new Perry Mason on HBO's Perry Mason reboot.
Yes, I know.
And he worked with Tom Hanks on It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. He was Tom Hanks' main co-star in that.
Nice.
So keeping it kind of in the family, as you already are aware for my other pick. So I won't. Colin Hanks again is my Stanley. So let's go to your Stanley Robinson.
Okay, so Stanley was the one I could find a picture of. Frank was the one I couldn't. All I found was a sketch of Frank.
A sketch. But I couldn't find a picture of Stanley from that era. Like the one I saw, which is I think the one you probably saw, it looked like it was well after 1899. He
was an older man, and that's the one I went off of. Because I do picture these, if you're an owner of a baseball team, you're typically older in my mind. So I went with Stanley Tucci.
Okay. So Stanley Tucci and Paul Giamatti versus my much younger Colin Hanks and Matthew Rhys combo.
Correct.
All right, fair enough. So then we are moving. Let's do Louis Sox-Alexis.
Yes, Louis Sox-Alexis. Who do you have as your Louis Sox-Alexis?
Okay, so I was able to get that he was Native American, and definitely wanted to cast accordingly. If I had come and said Brad Pitt right here, it would have been a problem.
Are you going with Heather Locklear?
No, but it is maybe as equally distasteful a Native American pick.
All right, let's hear it.
You've tried to cast him before. I went with Jason Momoa, who is technically Native American because he's Native Hawaiian or part Native.
That's more Samoan. Semantics, my friend.
Right.
I went with a guy who, been around for a while. You might remember him as the little boy, Otter in Dances with Wolves. I went with Michael Spears.
Is he still acting?
He is still acting. Michael Spears is still acting.
Right. What's he done? What's he been in? How would I know him now?
Let me pull it up here, sir. Because he does. He is most recently was in Z Nation. He was also in Ballad of Lefty Brown. He was in The Activist, Angels and Stardust, Winter in the Blood, Gun Girls and Gambling. He's really stayed to the indie circuit. Mm-hmm. Yep. He was in the show Longmire. So he's still around.
What's his age now? So 89, he'd have been a kid.
Yep. So he was
About
born
our
in
age?
77. So a couple years older than us.
Huh. And Frank Soxalexis was an older, like 40, late 30, 40.
He was in his early 30s, but if you looked at Michael Spears now, he looks young enough to play the role.
Okay. So let's get on to the two managers then. We're going to cast these roles also because he said it was a pretty funny subplot there. So how do you pronounce Levi Cross, is it?
I pronounce it Lave Cross, but it could be Levy.
Okay. So who do you have for this role?
Okay, so as I talked about, Levy Cross was the one that was really good, and they took him and put him on the Perfectos.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to portray this as this really awesome player. I picked Chris Evans.
Okay. All right. I went with Shia LaBeouf. I'm not even going to do a ramp up to it. It was Shia LaBeouf.
Fair enough.
Quite honestly, we'll get to it, but I think we're going to go pretty much all your cast here.
Okay.
We'll talk about why. Maybe I have an outside chance with the last one with Joe Quinn. You did see Joe Quinn is Australian, correct?
I did see that, yes.
Okay. Not saying you need to pick an Australian actor, but I did. I went with Liam Hemsworth for this role.
Okay, and I went with Seth Rogen. Because I really wanted to accentuate the whole, you got this awesome dude, or we're putting him on the good team. You get Seth Rogen.
Oh man, did we cast him for something else? I can't remember. Probably
I
not.
think we used him. I think we used him, but he didn't win.
Fair enough. Okay. Yeah, I think down the line, I will say for my director, I wanted, I obviously came at it from a different point of view than you did, and as you gave your reasoning, I kind of fell in love with your vision a little bit of the Coens doing it "Where Art Thou" style.
Yes.
Just really, I'm blanking on other comedy works that they've done, but the Buster Scruggs kind of style of comedy.
Yes, I love Buster Scruggs, dude.
Yeah, I would get in for that. And that being said, I think your cast down the line is probably better for it. I'm trying to think if there's any that I want to fight for. But putting the Coens in charge, I wouldn't mind saving Matthew Rhys anyway, because I really like him as an actor.
Okay.
Colin Hanks, I wouldn't mind losing, but if it's not his dad directing, I don't. Well, I shouldn't say that. He did star in the first season of Fargo, but I think it'd be a weird pairing if it would be him and who would it be, Giamatti, or would it be Tucci?
No, it'd be Tucci.
Yeah, that'd be as brothers. I don't think anybody would buy that. So I think it's a package deal, one or the other. So yeah, we'll go with your package deal for the brothers. They could definitely do it Coen style, the Coen style justice for sure.
Yeah, and the thing is that I think Jason Momoa is, again, this is supposed to be a team of misfits. I think he's too big and burly to be a misfit.
Yeah, I've never heard of your guy, but he's starring in a Coen Brothers movie, so he better learn how to act quick.
You don't remember Otter?
I mean, no.
Okay.
But what was he, like 10 at the time? I don't think that'd be it wouldn't be a very good gauge of where he'd be at now. But whatever, he's got the role because I picked terribly. So then for the two player managers, I had Shia LaBeouf and Liam Hemsworth. You had Chris Evans and Seth Rogen. Here's my question. Would you rather burn Chris Evans on this or Shia LaBeouf? Because both would be believable as the athletic one.
Do you think Shia LaBeouf would be as? You know what? I'm okay with burning. I'll be honest with you. I'm okay with burning Chris Evans on this one, because to me this is I want to see this movie, right? And I just think the again having Chris Evans go from a player manager and all that, being like, you're going to
just an Adonis. Just an Adonis. He's just an Adonis.
Yes, exactly. I think that would be brilliant casting.
Great sense of humor. And I don't know if you've seen Knives Out, but he could do a role like this, absolutely.
Yeah, I've seen Knives Out. I love Knives Out. And yeah, he could do this role very, very easily. So wow, is this our first time that someone's ever swept?
First sweep. Yes.
First sweep goes to me. Holy fuck. I did not expect that, but yeah, I really want to see this movie, dude. Someone needs to make this, even if it's not this cast or whatever. This story is so full of everything. I mean, this could be a great series. Yeah, there's just so much material here in everything that went on in this fucking team that nobody remembers from 100 years ago.
All right, well, that'll do it for the Cleveland Spiders. That would be a very entertaining films, but we are going to go to our last break and come back and say our goodbyes. Be back in a minute. Since we all know about the plot against Mein Fuhrer Trump and those crybaby crisis actors, Swole Body's Gym is back in business of giving you the business, and we want that business booming again.
We do?
That's what our Twatter fans have been saying, and we at Swole Bodies listened. So, starting now, we're introducing our new 300 square foot sauna boxes. We just bought a brand new 300 square location at 8722 Santa Monica Boulevard and turned it into a brand new state-of-the-art workout location.
Do you think this is what our forefathers were thinking when they thought up the American dream? Ooh, yeah, I don't think so.
Glad you asked, Macho Van Horton. What we've done is left it a fully empty building except for 18 sauna barrels for you, along with our new exclusive Swole Bodies 80-minute cardio workout drills playing on a wall of flat screens over and over and over. It's so you can fit as many Swole Bodiesers in as possible.
This sounds like unnecessary hot dog and a grandstanding.
Oh, it's necessary because our Swole Bodyites say we need to set an example. And that example is to get as many people together as possible and stick it to these fakers at only $973.47 every 3 days.
The madness is running wild.
Ouch. Ugh. At Swole Body's Gym in Santa Monica, where gains get got and fake viruses get caught.
Don't give me your reasons to stay.
Welcome back to Cast That Movie, and we are about to say our goodbyes. And it looks like we're going to be saying goodbye to you for at least one episode, Tom.
Yes, that is the case. I will be out for the next episode.
So that being the case, we do not know. The only thing we do know is I will be here and Joe will be here in your stead. We do not know what projects we're going to do as far as the recast or the Dream Project, or if we're going to do a retrospective. We don't know yet. So that's all in the works and being figured out. But the good news is it's going to be a complete and total surprise when it is unleashed upon the public in 2 weeks.
Which I'm actually excited for, because I'll probably be, I might, real quick question, pulling the curtain back a little bit here. Are you going to be editing that one, or are we going to have someone else edit it? Or do you guys want to have me edit it?
I can edit it if it comes to it.
Perfect. Because if that's the case, then I'm super excited, because I'm going to have no idea what you guys are doing.
Nice. All right, fair enough. So that being said, we'll really quick let you guys know there are other podcasts out there that we do. We do an Office podcast where we watch each and every episode of The Office. Paul has never seen The Office before, and Paul is related to Tom somehow. For those who listen to this podcast have probably figured out. But Tom, you and I do that. It's called Bears Beats Bobbleheads Talking Office. It's available on most major, a few of the major formats. We'll be adding more in the future, but check it out. Find it. Tom.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Oh, yes. So yes, my brother Paul will be doing that one, along with your brother Scott will be doing that one.
Oh man.
Or is that my cousin, or is he more your cousin? I can't remember.
I don't
know. I also do the Twin Peaks podcast. That one is actually going to go on hiatus until my surgery is back. We just stopped at episode 6 or part 6 of The Return. And there just isn't a way for us to be able to do that one while I'm out. So we've already explained to the viewers there that will be out. And
remind everybody what the name of that podcast is.
Yeah, sorry, it's Podcast Above a Convenience Store Talking Twin Peaks, and that's found on pretty much all major podcasts, Apple, iTunes, Google, SoundCloud. It's also everything that you hear can also be found at the joedown.blog, where all of our stuff gets housed.
Yep. All right, well, Tom, have a good surgery. I don't know how that.
It's okay. Yeah, no, I think that's the best way you can do it. Have a good surgery, buddy. Yeah, I'm actually kind of looking forward to a spinal epidural. So that should be fun.
Yeah. Just let me know how that feels.
Yeah, well, hopefully I won't remember.
Oh, so morbid all of a sudden. All right, well, you'll be fine, and then you'll be back the episode after next. But yeah, check us out next episode and find out what Joe and I come up with, and then we'll be back to normal, I think, hopefully after that. But
we should be.
Time will tell, and we'll figure it out as we need to, because that's what we do best is work on the fly, as we proved so well in this episode.
This episode is by far our most improv episode. I'm gonna pull back the curtain a little bit, dude. I forgot to cast a director for the baseball movie. So while I was discussing it, I was looking up directors.
You just pulled the Coens out of your ass.
I pulled the Coens out of my ass.
And then you sweep it too, and then I give you all of it. Like, you must have put a lot of thought into this. This is a great idea.
Yeah, no, I did, because I remember them being who I wanted, but I couldn't remember as I was going through this. I was panicking. So I was like, oh God. Come on, brothers. Okay.
All right, well, that should do it for us here on Cast That Movie. I'm in my basement, so I have to go up and see if there's still an upstairs, or if a tornado has taken it and my family away. But we will be back next episode in 2 weeks, as always. It'll be me and Joe, and we'll be doing something. Until then, take care and prosper. I don't know. All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Fun episode. It was sloppy Joe, but those moments can be really funny.